Let's get on with this.
What's up, y'all? Ricky Hi-Fi, Dick Hi-Fi here. Episode 1 of the 123's, the MPC2000. We're gonna get into this machine and cover all the basics of it. See how it ticks. See what we can do with it. First thing you got to do is turn it on when you get it. So, well, before we do that, let's go over the back panel here. Inputs and outputs. How you hook this thing up. Obviously, there's a power cord there. Pretty sure you're gonna understand what that entails. You plug that in, plug it into your wall. You should be good to go. You're gonna have the headphone out, which a lot of people just monitor through the headphones. You're also gonna have a stereo out, which you can put into an amp, into whatever, however you want to monitor your music outside of your headphones, be it your stereo, a boom box, some kind of DJ setup, whatever, into your computer somehow. And then you're going to have inputs, which if you're going to be sampling, which we definitely are, you're going to want to get into there. They're 1/4 inch unbalanced, just like the ins and outs are the same. 1/4 inch unbalanced mono inputs. Looks like a guitar cable type of thing. So that's where you'd be going. You can come out RCA, come out of whatever you're coming out of, with any connector. You just got to get to unbalanced 1/4 inch. You're also going to see on my machine there's a separate 8 output, so you can go into dedicated channels. You have 8 outputs, which if you use that along with the stereo outs, you got a total of 10 outputs. So you can break different tracks out to different channels and different sounds out to different channels and route them whichever way you want to route them. It's great for dumping things into your computer with speed. You can do it with just 2 channels. It takes a little bit more work and a little bit more effort. You're also going to see that there's some MIDI in and out and through. We're not going to be using that in this little series here, but coming up pretty soon we will be when we get to the ASR10 stuff. So that's pretty much it. There's also SCSI. You'll notice that I have the SCSI thing occupied here, SD card reader. I've been using that on this machine and I love it. If you get your hands on one, it's a great thing. It saves a lot of time and it saves a lot of discs. The real reason I went with that is because I've had a problem more and more getting my discs to play along properly, nicely. It's harder and harder to find good discs for a reasonable price. Reasonable meaning you should be paying about $1 a piece if you buy them like 25 to 50 or something like that. Anything more, I don't like paying more than that. But the discs I've been getting, I got a batch last time and they started failing right away. So I'm getting tired of that. They're getting harder to come by, and even the new old stock, you got to wonder where they've been sitting in a warehouse. Are they still good? I don't know. Anyway, I went with that SD card reader. Really been happy. SCSI to SD. So I've been that. Now I do still keep these, and the cool thing about that is you get to keep your disk drive, your floppy drive intact, and use it as normal in case you do have stuff on a disk that you want to put in there, or you find get it from somebody else, whatever the case may be. I got my OS on there too. So first thing you do is you're gonna pop in your OS into this drive if you got it on a disk, and power on. Power button right here on your right hand side as you look down. It's going to take a second doing its thing, booting itself up. If you don't have the OS on a disk, get online and try to order it from somebody if you don't know anybody that has one. It's easy to copy that OS. We'll get into that in this episode and how you do that. My recommendation is that right when you get a good copy of the OS, make several copies of it so that you got backup, obviously, because you're stuck like Chuck if you ain't got OS to feed the brain on this thing. All right, so we got this thing on. I like to pop my discs out right away when I'm not using them. Sometimes they just sit there and spin, and it gets annoying. All right, speaking of annoying, a lot of people's beef with the MPC family is that they don't like the screen and the way it's labeled. Things are very small, and it's true. You got to strain sometimes. If your vision's not that great, you might struggle at times. If your lighting is not great, You want to put some light on this machine, because especially when you're learning, the labels are pretty small. The screen, the information on the screen is relatively small, especially what you're used to nowadays. This is not a touch screen. This is before all that, obviously. And so we'll talk about the layout here. Now, the first thing that jumps out, and the you know, the iconic element about these machines is the 16 pads. And these are great. This is what makes this machine fun. And you can just beat on them. They're pretty rugged. You know, they do require some service every now and then. The whole machine does. But it takes a beating. Like, you beat on these things, so it's all right. Anyway, the 16 pads, that's what you'll be dealing with here. It's a lot of fun. There's 4 banks of that. You toggle through the banks A, B, C, D with this pad bank button. And it's just 4 different groupings of 16. So that's 64 sounds that you can dedicate to this in all. And you just toggle through that. Going back up here, let's start up here. You're going to see the main volume. So this is your output on here. You record gain. This is your signal in. You'll be controlling the gain going in. You want a nice hot signal going into there when you're sampling. These are your numeric numbers over here. And you'll see underneath they all have little assigned features to them. Mixer, other, MIDI, sync, sample, trim, program, song, punch, disc. And this is your shift key, and this is your enter key. 2 very important keys. One thing that was hard for me to get used to coming from the ASR going to this was that when you are selecting these modes, you have to hold down the shift key. If you want to go into the program page, you don't press shift and then program. You press shift, hold it down, and then you press program. If you want to go to sample, same thing. You got to hold that thing down, and it took some getting used to for me. Next, over here to the right, this is your data entry wheel. It's got 2 different levels. You have this guy, which you spin in the middle, and then you have this guy on the outside, which you kind of shuttle it back and forth. And that's how you'll be kind of navigating the screen. There's a lot of different applications there. You got cursors here, which kind of scoot your cursor around. You can see as I do this, the highlighted part of the screen moves. Now, another thing is that, you know, these machines are not new. Sometimes the buttons can be a little bit funny. This is a friend of mine's machine. My machine's a mess, but his buttons are great. This machine's in great shape. I'm very happy for him to have this. But sometimes you gotta push on them. They can be a little bit funny. My suggestion is don't just smash them down. If you got a button that's like sticking, being a little funny, kind of push on it and roll your finger, like roll it around. That usually helps. You don't want to be like mashing them down too hard, but sometimes, like I said, they get a little funny. This is the transport section. We're going to go into that in a second. Let's jump up to the screen right here. We are in the main screen mode, which in the MPC is going to be your sequence page pretty much. You'll see it's not just alphanumeric stuff. It's like it's set up like a grid that you navigate. So you jump around here and you change things using the shuttle or using the numbers, the numeric element to this as well. Is a lot of stuff on the pages. They tend to be a little bit crowded. Navigate the pages when you get in there and get comfortable with them, because there's not that many, but understanding everything that you're seeing on there is definitely going to help you out. Now, you'll see at the bottom there's this row of items that you can press on here. These correspond to these F buttons, and this is another part of the way you navigate the machine. So step, edit, turn off, turn on. All these correspond to these buttons right under them, F1 through F6. Tracks, see, I'm selecting which track I'm in by track plus, going up, going back down this way, solo. So those are the corresponding buttons for that. Pretty much every page will have things on the bottom that you could select and through pressing these buttons. Now going back down here, note variation assigned. with the slider here, we'll get into that later. Don't worry too much about that right now. It's not necessarily a function that everybody uses a lot. I've used it. I generally don't use it, but you know, we'll get into that a little bit more later. This is your transport. So along with your sequence page, this is how you're going to be playing, recording, erase, undo sequence. You got a tap tempo on there. It's all pretty self-explanatory. Stop, play, record. Like I said, we'll get into the functions of those as we go through the episodes. And then you have the locate. This kind of goes into your step editing in your sequence. We'll definitely talk about that. But that's basically the layout of the machine. Now, another thing you'll notice is, let's see if I find a page here. That this has a function in this right-hand corner. I can't seem to get my brain to work right now. That on a lot of pages says do it. Here, let's go to sample. Or let's go to load. All right, you're pressing load, go up into all files. We'll go into sound files. Oh, there's no disk in there. Here, let me pop this back in. Sounds. All right, so tight verby snare. This is a instrument I have in there, a sound I have in there. You'll see this do it. This do it is the command for a lot of pages. So when you want something to happen, rather than having enter or yes, it's got this do it button. So if we want to load this sound in there, we hit do it, and that pops up on a lot of different pages. So just to let you know, it is the yes, the activate command button. So we'll get into those specific functions in just a second. We'll just hit discard for now. What I do want to do is talk about copying the OS. So let's go to, if you go to load, go up to the top. It might be under save. My machine's bugging out. Here. Go to save. Go all the way to the end. Scroll all the way to the right. You're going to see copy operating system. We're going to hit do it. It says no disk. So you want to put the disk with the OS on it into it. I'll hit do it again. So it's loading that OS into a file that it can then copy onto another disk. And I happen to have another disk right here. So when it's finished loading that, we'll just go ahead and, all right, so select destination, yes. Insert the destination disk and press do it. So that was where we took it from. Now we want to put it on this disk. So we'll just stick it in there, and then we're going to hit do it. And it's now saving the OS onto that disk. So that's the first thing you want to do when you power up and get this thing going. If this is your first time using this machine, just get a couple of versions of that, because these can go bad. Like I said, you're dead in the water if you don't have any OS. It has no brains of its own. You got to load up the operating system. Version 1.71, I believe, 1.72, something like that is what the current thing. That's what I use. And you can do that numerous times on several disks. I recommend doing it. So that's pretty much it for the intro to getting started with there. A quick lap around the machine to let you know what's going on. There's a few things we didn't go over, but we're definitely going to get into that. So I'll see you on the next go around here. Episode 2 coming up. Later.
Let's get on with this.